What's up, you guys? I'm sitting on the rooftop of my Spanish school currently. This is essentially going to be my last Lewis & Clark info video. If you're new here, I'm a senior and I'm about to finish my last semester of college at Lewis & Clark College, and I'm here to help you guys. I'm here to give you guys the inside scoop on what's really going down. If you can see that I'm peeling, let's not talk about it, because the sun here is really powerful, which that's gonna be my first note for you guys. If you study abroad with Lewis & Clark and you come to Ecuador, in Cuenca, or if you just come to Cuenca in general, the sun here is extremely intense. Like, I'm talking like I could be getting burned right now and it's cloudy and looks like it's gonna rain. Anyway, so basically, this past semester I have spent roughly 4 months here in Cuenca with Lewis & Clark College with the overseas program. This is the language, I don't know if it's considered language intensive, but it's the language program. Let me first off let you guys know that coming into this program, the overseas office told us basically nothing, and I'm kind of genuinely disappointed in them because I expected, since Lewis & Clark is such a study abroad school, that they would have had it nailed down with informing students about their study abroad programs before they actually arrive. However, in this case, that was not how it went down. So basically, last semester there was only one meeting with the overseas office, and I wasn't able to go because I was working. So they sent me the slides that they presented, but it was not useful information. So basically, I'm going to tell you what you need to know from my perspective and about my experience in general. First off, I'm going to give a disclaimer that this might not be true for every program with overseas, and this also might not be true with every trip that comes to Cuenca. Things might vary. I don't really know. I only have my own experience. When I arrived, no one had told me what was going to happen when I got to the airport, but what happened was a lovely woman named Narcisa was there to pick me up and take me in a taxi to the hotel we were staying at in Quito. Now, I didn't know that we were going to spend some time in Quito, but we were. We spent like a week in and around Quito. We went to a place called Mindo that was beautiful, maybe one of the highlights of the trip, and yeah, we just kind of had like fun little days hanging out with Narcisa. So Narcisa is a representative from the Spanish school here that we are taking classes with. I was under the impression that someone from Lewis & Clark was going to be here with us, which I guess I don't really know where I got that impression from, but I just thought that was the case. But no, there's no representative from Lewis & Clark here. This is a small Spanish school where other students come to learn Spanish while they're in Cuenca, and it's like 3 blocks from like the main like centro of Cuenca. So anyway, you're in Quito for like a week, and then we came to Cuenca. We flew together to Cuenca. You don't have to purchase that flight. It is pre-purchased for you, which also no one told me. And then once we arrived in Cuenca, we met our host families and went home with them immediately. And then the first day of class was a very, very, very large Spanish placement test. I was not expecting a large test my first day. So we had this big test. They take you on tour of the city, and that's pretty much it until you get placed in your class. So once that happens, you have your teacher. So the schedule of a week is essentially every day you have Spanish. Monday through Thursday, you have Spanish 8:30 to 12 with a short break in the middle, and they provide little snacks during the break, which is nice. And this is like a more interactive Spanish class. It's more tailored to your needs, especially if you're one-on-one. We have 3 students that are one-on-one in this program. Okay, Monday and Wednesday we have Spanish, and then we have lunch break, and then we have culture class. Our culture class is with a professor named Cecilia. She's great. And you have an hour and a half of culture class, lecture style. And then Tuesday and Thursday you have biology with Ernesto. Ernesto's also great. He's a little bit hard to follow sometimes. And Tuesday you're at Amauta, the Spanish school, for class. But Thursday we go to the biopark where Ernesto is like the CEO, owner guy. He runs the whole thing. So on Thursday we go to the biopark for class, and usually it's like walking around talking to people that aren't actually Ernesto about reptiles or amphibians, things like that. And so these classes that aren't Spanish are taught in a sort of Spanglish way. Both the professors can speak English pretty well, but the idea is to start in more English and work your way towards Spanish. I will say we still a lot of times speak in English in these classes, so don't worry about what language the classes are going to be taught in. So that's pretty much it for the classes. And then there are several trips throughout the semester. I think 2 trips for culture, 2 trips for biology, so that's 4 trips, and then I want to say there's more than that though. But most of them are just weekend trips. The only one that was longer than a weekend was our trip to the Amazon, which you're supposed to go to the more like, highlands is not the right word, the more mid-elevation part of the Amazon called Sumaco. This region is called Sumaco. And then you're supposed to go to the lowlands, which would be Yasuni. But in our case, Yasuni was closed for protests, so we ended up having to, the day before, switch our trip to an area called Cuyabeno. That's not common. That's not supposed to happen. So our assignments tied to that also changed. But typically on this trip you do a short research project for biology, and in the end you have to write a little research paper on it. It's pretty simple. In addition to that, in terms of big projects for biology, we also have a project that we do at the biopark, which is called a Maru, and it's like an educational purpose display, exhibition, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a pretty decently sized project. I unfortunately this semester had to do it alone because we have 7, and instead of doing groups of 2 and then a group of 3, we did groups of 2 and a group of 1. So that was unfortunate for me, but life goes on. Okay, some things about packing and daily life here. So, the weather, everyone acts like it's freezing cold. Coming from Portland, assuming you've been going to school there, it is not cold here. It's roughly 65 to 70 degrees every day. The weather is a little bit strange, and they like to say that you get all 4 seasons in one day because it can be really sunny and then get extremely rainy. So pretty much everywhere you go, you need to bring a rain jacket because you never know when it's going to be absolute downpour. But it's pretty warm, generally speaking, pretty warm. And when they say it's going to be really cold places, it means maybe like 50 at the coldest, so it's not very cold. So pack accordingly, but also pack according to the fact that the machismo culture here is very strong. And if I was not wearing a jacket today when I was walking around, like right now I'm in the safety of this Spanish school, but if I was walking around like this, I would get much more attention than I want. Most of this attention is relatively harmless, although it is very bothersome, but pack things that are relatively conservative, but not like, that aren't going to make you too hot if you're wearing them out in the city. So I don't know what that means for you, but I wish that I would have known that, because I packed summer clothes and winter clothes, not for stuff in between, because they made it sound like it was gonna be cold and it's not cold. That's that. It's also high elevation here. I didn't realize how high the elevation is, and I also expected to be acclimated by now. I in fact am not. I am still very winded when I go up 2 flights of stairs in a row. So know that you're going to be affected by the altitude unless somehow you are like just built for high altitude. I don't know. The food here, I'm sorry, it's not good. And if you think it is, well, we have very different taste. Most meals are going to be at least half a plate of rice. Dry, plain, white rice. So either very early on in your host family situation, communicate that you either can't eat that amount of rice or that you don't like rice. I don't know what they would do if you said you don't like rice, but establish very early on how you're willing to eat, because otherwise you're going to be stuck with 2 plates of rice a day, and it's not very fun. There's also a lot of strange cuts of meat here. I, if you don't know, have been vegetarian for over 6 years and recently have transitioned from vegetarian to pescatarian to now I eat chicken. And I told them that I ate pork because I didn't think they would serve me pork very often, and I was like, I think I can handle it like once or twice. That was a mistake on my part. They feed pork all the time, and that is something I did not expect. My camera's gonna die, so we're gonna have to cut it short here, and then I'll talk to you more later. Here we are, another day, another outfit, a slightly different angle, and more bright sun. Also about food, it's hard to find things that are familiar here. The way that a typical lunch works here is a lot of restaurants will have a standard almuerzo lunch, which usually includes a soup, a main dish, a juice, and a dessert, which is a really good deal, and usually it's all for like $2.50 or less. But the thing is that that food is the same thing I get fed at home, so usually when I'm eating out, I'm not going to choose that, even though it is the more economical option. And most other foods, regardless of portion or quality, are roughly $10 and up if you're not getting Ecuadorian food. Of course there are exceptions to this, and if you want specific recommendations, I am willing to give them to you. I'm not going to gatekeep my favorite cafes. And then, let's see, the grocery stores are kind of expensive. It was interesting, in the information that they gave us about like what to bring, they said to bring plenty of like conditioner and like body wash and things like that, because they said we wouldn't be able to find the brands that you're used to here. The thing is, you totally can. They're a little bit more expensive. I would say the biggest brands of like hygiene, I don't know, like shampoo and conditioner and things like that here is Head and Shoulders and Pantene. Those are the main US brands that I see. But like in terms of toothpaste, like Colgate, like all these things are here. So like I don't really know why they gave us the impression that we wouldn't be able to find anything like that here. It's just typically a little bit more expensive, which, I mean, if you really want it, you're willing to pay for it. Let's talk about the volunteering positions. So they don't really give you much information about the volunteering situations. They give you like this weird little breakdown of like what the different opportunities are. But for example, my group, I don't know if everyone applied for these things or what, but we're split into 2 groups. So we have 3 people at Amaru, which is the same place that we do our bio classes. And then we have 4 people at a, I don't really know. I think it's like a kind of a little school, like a cultural school maybe? I don't really know. But I can speak from my experience at Amaru. It is kind of hard work. I was really excited to be working at a bio park because I thought I was going to be able to feed like cool, not so dangerous animals and things like that. But the reality of it was that I spent most of the days I was volunteering, and volunteering is 4 hours. It's 4 hours every Friday. And I spent most of my time cutting up fruits and vegetables for animals, which like there are worse jobs. I also spent a day working with bichos, which are bugs, and they're also considered nutrition because they cultivate these bugs to feed to other critters. And that was literally the most miserable job ever. It just, the room smells like decomposing fruit and just like rotting things, and you have to go in there with the bugs with your bare hands and collect them, and it is not pleasant. So essentially the work that you do at Amaru as a volunteer is manual labor that is not very fun. The only exciting job I had there was when I got to give frogs a little bath in some, I don't know, solution, because they have like a fungus infestation. And so I got to like catch these little froggies and put them in the little cup and whatever. Okay, in terms of budgeting, now this is subject to change, obviously, but with our program this year, we were given $500 before the program. That's like technically our own money because it's from our tuition. We were given $500 into our bank accounts for this semester. That is not going to get you very far, honestly. It seems like a lot, but for like 3.5 months, that's not very much. But they also give you $30 almost every week. That is like lunch money. And if you're getting almuerzos, if you can handle it and you can get almuerzos, you could low-key make some money off of this situation. But they give you $30 a week. And then during our spring break, which is traditionally during the week of Carnival, you get $200 because we don't have class and it's supposed to be like your travel time. So you get $200 for that. If you're flying, it's probably not going to get you very far. But if you're taking the bus, it will. Okay, let's talk about housing, I guess. So we're all spread out throughout the city. My friend Lewis and I are actually very close. And I think we might be the closest to the school as well, which is kind of lucky. Our host moms are related, they're family, so we live close and we spend time together. Otherwise, you're going to be going to school alone probably. The buses here are really good. A lot of people are going to tell you that they're very unsafe, which I don't think they are. The only time that I felt unsafe on the bus is when there was a man that was like definitely on drugs and he was acting kind of crazy, but he was making everyone uncomfortable, and the bus driver ended up telling him to get off the bus. So like, obviously when it's a really crowded bus, don't have like your phone or your wallet really accessible because someone could definitely easily snatch it. But I've never felt like people were trying to steal from me on the bus. Otherwise there's the tram or the train or whatever you want to call it, which is a lot nicer, but it doesn't have as many routes. Obviously it has tracks, so it's more limited. If you are on the, well, I don't know what side of town that is, but if you're on that side of town, which I think is like the northern side of town, it runs like east to west, northern, you can take the tram and there's a stop nearby school. For both of these types of public transportation, you need to have a like tap card, which you can get pretty easily. You just load money onto it and you tap it every time you use the bus or the tram, whatever you use. But you need to know that you need those. You can on the tram buy like a one-time pass, and you can do that as many times as you want, but it's more expensive to buy it that way. On the bus, the only way you can not have a card is if you offer someone else 30 cents, because each ride is 30 cents. If you offer someone 30 cents and they tap you in, but you need the card in order to use the bus. But I would say the bus is pretty safe. Like, don't be nervous to take it. Taxis are pretty easy too. They're relatively cheap. It's cheaper to take the bus, but if you can't, there's taxis. But otherwise, like most times, Lewis and I would walk to school. Like, I live a little bit further, so I would walk to Lewis's house, pick him up, and then we walk to school. It's like 20 minutes. It's mostly flat, and yeah, like that's just what we do most of the time. But I know other people live a lot farther. Like, I think my friend Katie, it takes her like roughly 30 minutes to get to school, and that's with taking the tram. So it really depends. Like, we're really all spread out throughout the city, which I also didn't expect. I expected us to be like kind of in the same neighborhood, and I thought we would all be pretty close to the school. Honestly, I feel like I've told you guys everything that I would have wanted to know. You know, when I do videos like this, it would definitely be useful if I would write notes before starting recording them. This is Jocelyn from Way in the Future. I am editing this video finally and realizing I missed a lot of points that I think are kind of important. So I'm gonna give you a quick rundown on what those things are. And this video is pretty much all out of order, but this is gonna be even more out of order. So in terms of trips, I talked about the Amazon already. Another trip we do is to Cañar, which is a place that is like super indigenous, and we stayed in like a church that was converted into something else, and we kind of just did little hikes and went to some ruins, and that was that trip as I remember it. We also went to Aguarongo, which was with biology with Ernesto, and I have a little vlog on that, and that was just a quick little trip that involved hiking, basically, is pretty much it. Waking up early and hiking and bird watching. There's also Saraguro, which is another like culture indigenous trip. And what did we do? We stayed with I think they're gonna change it because we didn't have the most successful time, but we stayed with a little family in their home, and we did some work in the field. Some people built a little house for a pig that was gonna give birth. We prepared lots of food. We learned how to make Ecuadorian tamales and some other things. I kind of forget. I think we also did a little hike there. Lots of hiking. And then spring break, I know I mentioned that you get money for spring break, but spring break is during Carnival, so I know there was a lot of people that were like not really sure what to do at that time, whether they should stay in Cuenca for Carnival and like experience that, or if they wanted to go away. I ended up doing a little bit of both. I went to Montanita, which is a very popular beach location that I would recommend, and it's good for partying. And also Carnival in town is pretty crazy. Like, it's a little bit overwhelming for me. I feel like if I'm gonna do like the Carnival Mardi Gras thing, like I either want to do it like full out in New Orleans or in Brazil. So I know someone did go to Brazil for Carnival, but it's really crazy. Anyway, they spray water on you, and like I got a bucket of water dumped on me walking down the street. They spray foam, they get foam in your eyes. But I think it's called Dia Comadres y Compadres. That was a really fun concert that I went to with my host mom and some friends. But I think that wraps it up on trips. And then when we leave Cuenca, they give you money to get to Quito, I think it is. So, like if you're flying to Quito, they'll book your flight for you. And if you're not flying or going somewhere else, they'll give you equivalent to however much money that is. So you don't have to leave with the program. I did not. I went back to Montanita and then I went to Galapagos. So I would recommend traveling more, but it's up to you. Also host family dynamic. So that for me was kind of strange. Like I had two host sisters and they weren't very interested in being my friend, which is fine. But the host family dynamic was kind of weird because like I didn't really like, and I heard this from other people too, like you're not really allowed to be cooking in the kitchen as a guest. So like I love to cook and I did not love Ecuadorian food, so I wished that I could cook, but I felt like I could only be in the kitchen when no one was home. But I think that's all I have to say on that. And then I also wanted to talk about other places to go. So I just touched on Montanita, which is great and so fun, but it's definitely like a beach party zone. I stayed a little outside of town, so you definitely can make it more of a yoga beach surf thing, but there's a lot of partying. Also really close to Cuenca are the Baños spas that are, I think they're like 20 minutes away by taxi, and there's a bunch of spas that are nice, as in like hot spring spas. There's also Cajas National Park. That's really fun. Super high altitude, but you can hike around there. It's really nice. It's like an hour bus ride, and that you take from the bus station. That's not like a city bus. And then the last thing I have to mention is Baños, that's farther away. I think it's only supposed to be like 4 hours. There was a landslide when I went, so it ended up being like 10 hours, but it's really cool. You can go rafting, zip lining, hiking, all sorts of things. Lots of crazy activities in Baños, but it's just a cute, cool place to go if you like want to go on a weekend trip and not go too far, but also get out of town. Okay, anyway, I think that's all I have to add, and hopefully that covers everything. So jumping back into the other pre-recorded content. I'm going to end things here. I really hope that this answered your questions. I hope that if you're going on the trip to Cuenca with Lewis and Clark, this is useful, and I hope that you feel more prepared than I did when I got here, because I was frustrated many times because of lack of communication. If you have questions, let me know. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you very much, and I'll see you next time.